you and I have interacted at some of our nation's most cherished national labs, places like Los Alamos. Do you have thoughts on what the current dismissals at DOE and NNSA could mean for our national security in the long term, and in particular for workforce morale?
Sorry, thank you for that question. I agree, and you know, I hope you all know how committed I was in my position and now with regards to national security, and the concern of China stealing our most valuable assets. But these cuts, particularly in the security area, but also having to do with our energy infrastructure, the cuts there too, give me even greater concern because they're immediate. Because to be able to work at NNSA, but also to be able to handle classified information, it requires a tremendous amount of background checks, polygraph. They ask all your neighbors. And so my neighbors are sick of being asked for all these things I've done. But the point is that when we make these cuts, even if we say, come on back after this weekend cut, what are the chances that we've increased the risk of someone being hired by China to come over and share what they've been doing? I, too, have been recruited. I got a letter not too long ago that was like, for 1 hour's work, could I take $40,000? Yeah. Now, you know, I don't have a mortgage to pay, but there are other people that do. So I just have to say that these cuts, and especially how they're going to impact the energy infrastructure, yeah. I think it's time for us to go to the new administration and to Secretary Wright and ask what was the process to decide how to do that, to make these cuts, because the process that we have at the Department of Energy to make cuts, and we do make cuts in our foreign from our federal employees, is it's based on budget priorities. When we develop our budgets, we set the priorities, and if your part of DOE doesn't fit in those priorities of the White House and also the Secretary of Energy, then you eliminate those people. But you do it in almost a 2-year process while you develop this budget, yeah. Because the priorities are changing all the time.
And one of the things that I think it's important to share with folks is that one of the probably the leading red flag for someone being a risk with respect to recruitment is financial distress. So we just created a whole bunch of people with really important clearances, really important expertise, who are all under financial distress. We created a bunch of targets for the CCP, and I think I'm aghast at how unthoughtfully this is all being carried out. Mr. DeBar, good to see you again. I want to ask you to sort of walk us through what currently happens. We'll talk about how the intelligence officers at the labs, the lab directors, and then DOE intelligence coordinate, and then what happens when they don't all line up and agree.
Yes, Senator. So obviously this has been a big focus. There's a classified report from MITRE that's out there that has evaluated the details of that. I think that's kind of safe to say, and they've obviously had some recommendations on that particular topic. In general, what happens is that the intelligence component of the DOE has local officers at each of the labs for counterintelligence. They will do the screening of employees, if people are travel, interactions, grant security clearances. And so they do that interaction as part of that intelligence component with the lab complex. In general, that works quite well. DOE's intel arm is quite well integrated with that effort. And I think the biggest challenge on this is not the structure of it, but as I was mentioning, who has the approval, right, to allow this interaction to happen? I'll give an example. I've been told that many times any lab employee can actually do a recommendation and potentially, I've heard, even a sign-off on people coming to visit a lab. And so if there's a PRC citizen who is employed at the lab, they could recommend another PRC group coming from China to enter the lab. And if the authority has been delegated down to the lab, sometimes these things are happening at a higher rate than maybe some people at headquarters might like. And so this who has authority and to sign off and the interaction of that, I think that's the core practical issue that probably deserves to be raised to a more senior level than has, I believe, been delegated.
If you have specific examples of that, I would appreciate if you would share them with this committee. Thanks.
Senator Cotton.